If I had removed 2 or 3 dominoes at one point anywhere in the lineup, of course, the dominoes in the center would have never fallen because the action and the force of the preceding dominoes would not have been transferred. In a similar sort of way, through its myriad of cultural contexts and languages and experiences, humanity has a nearly infinite amount of wisdom available. Like the dominoes, it has to pass from one generation to the next, from one person to the next, or you will not be able to assume that that wisdom will be present when the row of dominoes finally gets to the center. It could be that there are perhaps many bits of wisdom that have simply been lost because they were not transferred. Somebody died and took the secret to the grave with them, as the expression goes. And we will never know what that person knew, which is where, to me, it becomes all the more important that the communication happen now while there's opportunity. That, in a sense, every time anyone dies, it's like a library burning down. All this information that suddenly becomes inaccessible. And whatever wisdom might have empowered us from that person is no longer available to us. So when we ask why, to have some respect for the, well, if you will, the sacredness of this word, that it's about the interconnection of life, that it's about moving to a point of deeper understanding. That when we ask why, it's not a rhetorical throwaway phrase. Rhetorical questions are those questions that we say because it's the sort of, it's usually an unanswerable question. It's a question that has no simple answer. Sometimes it's a question for which the answer is, it's expected that someone knows. Does anyone here actually want to commit murder? Well, the assumption is that no one does, and so that's a rhetorical question. But it's asked for the sake of conversation, so that we can make the point of, yes, we are a room full of people who don't want to commit murder, or whatever else. We are a room full of people who believe in the value of every individual. We're a room full of people who believe in the value of every perspective. Well, if we believe in the value of every perspective, that means that we need to value each person in the room having a voice and being able to having opportunity, if you will, to share what they can share for the benefit of the group. So that when you have 20 people walk into the room, they each are a tiny little library, but none of them knows much about what is in the other libraries. Only by discussion and dialogue and effective communication can we get past this point of you know something and I know something and we have this job to do, and of course we come to it wanting to attack it in completely different ways because of our respective past experiences, the way we've understood how to solve problems, which we may have learned from teachers, we may have learned from parents, we may have learned from siblings, or we may have learned by doing our own experimentation. But hopefully, when a challenge arises, when a problem arises, we've figured out some way to respond to it so that we don't have to just lay there and feeling victimized by it. And we can ask, why did this happen? And probably come up with a whole long list of possible reasons. We cannot be certain, however, that we have discovered every possible reason. We get to a point where all indications are, this is the reason, this is the primary reason, we don't need to look further. Even if we don't need to look further, even if we don't look further, doesn't mean that there might not be some reasons out there which at some point may be empowering or instructive to us. Occasionally in my reading I run into reference to a term called the butterfly effect. The basic idea behind the butterfly effect, well, simply stated, the butterfly effect is the notion, the belief that if a butterfly on the other side of the world in China, Mongolia, wherever, India. If a butterfly on the other side of the globe fluttered its wings, that there would be some effect of that all the way around the world. The belief that comes out of that is simply that life is that interconnected. The question, of course, is how long would it take for that effect to become obvious, or would that effect ever become obvious? To say that it's not there implies that we have somehow all the knowledge pertaining to this subject, which of course no human being ever does. Wisdom is something that can be acquired, and I have met people at various times who are extremely wise. Because they are extremely wise, though, I think every single one of them would insist that they don't know it all and probably couldn't. Because there's ways of understanding things that only God would understand, because God does not have the limitations of being human in the sense that we are. As limited human beings, we have to deal with things like our lives being finite, that we are not going to be here immortal, that we are born, we live, and at some point we die, in the sense of relinquishing the physical body. If energy is neither created nor destroyed, but simply changes form, it's probable that we will, that there is some sort of spiritual realm beyond this life, whether you want to call it the soul or heaven or whatever. I'm looking forward to it for myself, but I'll get to it when I get to it. I don't need to rush the journey, because there's things that by being in this body that we can learn while we're here that would be more difficult to learn without the use or the availability of a human body.